Welcome to Dreams Inspire Reality Podcast with Tara Darnley, a podcast for creatives looking to turn their dreams into reality with practical strategic steps from everyday people and entrepreneurs who are living their best lives possible.
Hi guys, so today's episode, I'm super excited about our guests. I told you guys we're going to be having some very interesting story, and we are going global. We're taking it across this podcast across the world. And so I have Henri with us today, and his story is just phenomenal. I watched a documentary and I saw his story and what he's doing in his country, and I just had to have him on. So I'm so honored that he took the time out to be with us today to share his story. And Henri, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. So I'm just going to jump right into it. In your own words, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, basically, like I said, my name is Henri Nyakarundi. I was born in Kenya, grew up in Burundi. Short story, my parents were refugees in Burundi from Rwanda. And grew up in Burundi till 96 when the region, I'm from East Africa, the region was kind of in turmoil. So my mom sent us to the States, me and my sister. So I'm mostly, I came to the States. I'm mostly an entrepreneur. My passion is social entrepreneurship. That's really what I'm passionate about. And now I do also a lot of passing on to entrepreneurship skill sets to young men and women entrepreneur on the continent, especially in East Africa. But that's me. I'm a husband also, father of 3. So yeah, I think that's pretty it.
Well, he's being modest. That's not it, and that's why we have him here. We're gonna jump all into it. The first question I always ask my guests, like starting off, is: are you living your dream life?
Yeah, I am. I've always followed my dreams. I truly believed that, I truly believe you have to follow your dream. But yeah, I'm living my dream. Everything I'm doing now for the last 6 years, I've been something that I've been planning since 2008, actually. And I moved back in Rwanda in 2013 to pursue this dream of mine of not only coming back with a project, but also having an impact to communities and showing that, as African, we can only solve our own problem, but develop some very innovative stuff and basically, just doing what we're supposed to do to push our community and our continent forward. So yes, that's definitely a yes answer.
Great. And I read somewhere that you mentioned that you just always knew in your blood that you were meant to be an entrepreneur. You didn't see yourself working a 9 to 5. And a lot of us, even though we feel like that, sometimes situation and circumstances just doesn't provide us those opportunities to really push and pursue our dreams. And I think it's really about persistence. So what was really your why that pushed you to just say, you know what, no matter what, I'm going to make this happen in the beginning stage of your journey?
Yeah, I've known that I was an entrepreneur for an early age, but I wasn't sure because I come from a family where entrepreneurship at that time was something you do as a sidekick. You get a job and you do entrepreneurship on the side. So my mom was very keen into education, getting a job, because she comes from an era where you dedicate 20, 30 years of your life for company safety and all those good stuff. So I was not confident enough when I was younger about my, being an entrepreneur as a full-time skill. Is when I got to the State that I realized entrepreneurship was for me. Because in the State, that's where I discovered that it's a country where, entrepreneurship is at the foundation of pretty much everything, right? All the most successful people entrepreneur. The country was built on people, trying stuff and chasing their dreams. So that's when I realized entrepreneurship was for me. The second thing is I couldn't keep a job, right? I kept getting fired by my bosses. Yeah, man, I'm being honest. I couldn't keep a job, man. I always knew more than my boss after a few months. I've always had this, I always had a problem with authority. Also, I never liked people telling me what to do. So all those ingredients made me realize entrepreneurship was the way to go. Now, the challenge was being successful in entrepreneurship. That's another challenge because, you know, when you start something you never done before, you base stuff on your own knowledge, which is very limited if you've never done it before. So I looked at entrepreneurship a little bit like jobs because I've never been an entrepreneur before. So I thought it was just getting started, doing ABC, and money comes. And entrepreneurship is much more complex than that. And that was really the learning curve for me. But what really motivated me the most of not quitting this entrepreneurship journey is always that I know the alternative is not going to make me happy. And as long as I know that, I have to keep going and fighting this path of entrepreneurship because as hard as it is, it makes me happy, not only just happy, but it validates that I'm capable of doing this. And I'm not just passionate about this, but it's a validation. It builds your confidence. I like the fact that I'm in control of my own destiny. So all this stuff plays in, and the alternative is just not an option for me.
I like that. You hear that, guys? The alternative is not an option. Let's talk about when you were in the U.S. So you and your family came to the U.S., and that's when your entrepreneurial journey actually began. You started a trucking company both here and back home. So can you take us through that? Like, why a trucking company, and you know what inspired that?
So yeah, so trucking was definitely not my first business. It was the most successful I had in the States, but I failed dramatically for the first kind of 10 years of my life in the States. But I moved to Atlanta in '96, me and my sister. Initially, it was supposed to be a 4-year journey, ended up being a 16-year journey. But I got accepted in college at GSU, Georgia State University. And I first started, I learned English in the States, so it was very difficult for me to find friends and maneuver. But one of the things was very interesting. I first came across what they call multi-level marketing. So that's when I started my first journey of what they call business. And I was selling water filtration system. All the MLM I did was a failure, but it taught me a very valuable lessons about, you know, persistence, about rejections. Then I moved into when the cell phone started booming in 2000, 2001. I got into that. That was also a failure. I don't remember what other stuff. I was just, at that time, I had that mindset where I just need to try a few things, and if I'm going to get lucky and be successful. But trucking was, I started trucking in 2003. And the reason why I did trucking, very funny story. I used to work at Kinko's at that time.
Okay.
He's my friend now. His name is Elvis. He was a truck driver. And he used to come to Kinko's to print his W-2s, right? And so I used to print, and we used to have conversation. And one time I remember asking him, like, man, you making this kind of money a month? He said, no, man, that's what I make in a week. I was like, right then and there, man, that was going to be my business, you know? And it took me 3 months to get set up. But again, I went through a lot of hurdles. You know, I've always had this habit of jumping into business and then learning afterwards.
A lot of us are like that.
Yeah. But it takes so much energy, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're in the water, you're trying to learn how to swim and figure out how things are going. And that's a lot of energy. But it took me 2 years because that business was very critical for me. Because I was at the time of my life, I graduated from college, and my mom kind of got tired of me failing and always asking for money because I was short on cash and this. And I made my decision that this was going to be the business I make it. If I don't make this business work, I cannot continue this journey. And I made it work. It took me 2 years. I learned so much, and I did about 7 years of that business, but it was the most lucrative and the best business I ever had before this one. And yeah, so and he actually financed this particular business. But trucking is it's recession proof. So it was around 2003, but 2008 happened when that crisis, economic crisis, and it didn't really affected us that much compared to other businesses. So I love that business. Of course, it has a lot of challenges, but it's a very, very good business to be in.
What I love about that mindset shift, or the mindset you always had, it seems, is like when that person came in and you saw that check and it was inspiring to you, you didn't say, let me go work for a trucking company. You said, let me start my own trucking company. And not only here, but I'm going to put one there too. So that is like, it always goes back to, as I'm learning more about entrepreneurship and the journey, it's literally just your mindset that can pivot you to the next level. So let's talk about your new startup, because now you're in the green sector. You're in the green business. And, you're doing amazing with your new startup, Arid. So can you tell us more about your startup now and why you decided to venture into this? And I guess you can segue a little bit too on why you even moved back to your home country.
Sure. So 2008 was a very crucial year for me because that's when the economic crisis happened. At that time, I was doing also, because I had some extra income, so I was doing some little real estate on the side. And when the crash happened, at the time I had about 3 properties. And when the crash happened, all my properties lost values. It was a very tough time. And it was a soul-searching time. And at that time also, I used to come home every summer, visiting family, friends. And I started seeing the shift also back home where the economy was growing. And I'm in the States, the economy is sinking. And I was like, okay, this is not adding up. And I felt like there was a movement happening in Africa that I was missing out. And I've never been this type of guy of just doing stuff part-time. So I made that decision in 2009. I'm going back home. But I wanted to do something special. I wanted to do something unique. I wanted to because the ecosystem in Africa is totally different than the States, obviously. It's developing countries. You still deal with a lot of poverty. I mean, you have poverty everywhere, but you still deal with some poverty, lack of energy. Technology is not moving as fast in certain areas because you have a gap between the rural area and the urban area. So I saw an opportunity, because I've always been passionate about technology. I saw an opportunity to find a way to develop my own technology, right? Because all my life till that point, I was utilizing existing technology or existing business that was already existing in the market. But I was looking for a new challenge. I've always loved a big challenge because I feel like that's when my mind works the best and I start solving those problems and all those things. So I put together all that aspect. When I made the decision I was going to move back home, that's when I realized that, okay, what am I going to do? So I looked at 2 sectors that are key sector in Africa, energy and agriculture. But I didn't see myself in rural area, growing some stuff. That was not going to be me. So I was like, all right, cool. Let me focus on energy then. And I looked at the gap in energy, what's going on the ground and who's doing what. And I saw a gap initially was phone charging. So at that time, a cell phone was booming, but energy was a big problem. People had a big challenge charging their cell phone. So I was like, what can I create a kiosk that is solar that can charge phone? And that was the initial idea. It took me 3 years to develop the initial prototype. 2012, December, I packed up my bag, sold what I could sell, give away what I could, bought a one-way ticket and came back home, and the journey started from there.
Wow. And this has been the past, you started your startup now in 2008?
No. I started so I developed the prototype while I was still in the States.
Okay.
It took me 3 years, from 2009 to 2012, to build the first prototype. And then in 2012, that's when I moved back physically back home in Rwanda. And in 2013, I registered my business. March 2013, I registered my business. At that time, I also had another business in Burundi because I extended my trucking business to Burundi also, which is a neighboring country to Rwanda. But I sold that one to focus only on ARED. And that's when the journey started. And I've been doing this for 6 years now,
Wow.
till now, 6.5.
That's incredible. So what have been some of these? So for anyone listening, and they might be like you, whether they want to go back to their home country, or even if they want to do it here, and they're like, I don't know where to begin, or that's quite a bold move to just like, just completely switch, do a 360 and say, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to invest in my country, and I'm going to start a business to employ people. Because that's what you've done. What were some of the challenges that you faced in the very beginning stage for ARED?
Well, first, I got a funny story. For the first challenge I had was my mom. I had a successful trucking company. Then I'm telling my mom, I'm moving back, man. I'm going to do some phone charging stuff in the rural area. And she's like on the phone and like pausing for like 30 seconds. Like, are you crazy? Like, is something wrong with you? So my mom was my first challenge. She didn't get it. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just, entrepreneurship is also a lot of faith, man. You gotta be strong enough to believe in your capabilities, because I remember early on my sister, my mom telling this, because even ARED in my head was not well designed. I didn't know exactly what ARED was going to be, right? Because you never know. If you do an existing business that already in the marketplace, that's different. You can just copy and paste and all. If you're doing something that you have no reference, it's a whole nother challenge. So that was my family was my first challenge. My sister was telling me I'll be back in 6 months because, that's crazy.
Wait, is your sister still here?
Yeah, she's in ATL. Okay. Yeah, she's in ATL. And my sister was like, "Nah, you'll be back." But I was not selling ARED also like I knew what I was doing. I was just talking about some crazy now. I would charge phone in the middle of nowhere and all this. So people really thought I was crazy. My mom really thought I lost my mind. The last thing my mom said was like, "Whatever you do, Henry, do not ask me for any money." That's exactly what she said. I was like, "No, don't worry. I had some good savings and all those things. I like, don't worry." But the second challenge, Africa is a totally different ecosystem. And anybody who's planning or wants to come do business in Africa, there's a lot of advantages, but there's also a lot of challenges. The infrastructure is not there. You're talking about, we operate in 3 countries. You're talking about a very fragmented market. So you can go from one country to a neighboring country. It's a whole nother world. So different laws, different regulation, different everything. So you look at the states, all the different states, and you have different laws, different regulation. That's the kind of craziness that is. So that's the challenges, but it has changed a lot. The advantage is it's much cheaper to operate a business in Africa than it is in the States. There's less competition. There's less people in innovative space. America is highly competitive. There's not much you can do in America that nobody else has done, right? So you have a lot of room for growth in Africa. It's like a new market. You just have to be extremely patient, and it's a world of connection. In America, you can build a business. You don't have to be politically connected or connected to big business and all those things. In Africa, you have to. You have to be connected, because you cannot expand in another country by yourself, because you're going to find yourself spending so much money on lawyers' account just to learn that market. So you have to find partners. You have to find people to work with. So that was my biggest challenge and learning curve, because I came with the American mindset, and that didn't work here. So I had to reprogram myself. It didn't work. America is like boom, 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 go, 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 go. Here, man, got to be patient. You got to find a back door to get to where you're trying to be, right? You're not. I got so many stories, man.
We want to hear that. This is why we're having this conversation.
I had a story early on when I was starting, so I needed a license to operate my kiosk in one of the biggest marketplace. And I used to go to that government office every day, like, "Yo, what's up?" Ooh, to the point where it it was the mayor's office of Kigali, which is a city. The mayor's office telling me, man, you need to chill. This is Rwanda. You got to relax, man. Things are not going to happen the way you want. And it was just like a mind-blowing for me. Like, what do you mean it's not going to happen? You know, in the States, you got like, yo, you apply, things happening, you know, the process are moving. So so here when things happen like that, you have to find someone who knows somebody somewhere to push your case and do this and do that. So, and my aggressive style of doing business was just not welcome here also. I'm extremely aggressive, so that was a no-no here. But I didn't change that because I like, but I had to reprogram my strategy.
Yeah.
So initially, you know, the kiosk come and I do phone charging, but I quickly realized that business model was just not going to work. I was not going to make money charging just phone and building a sustainable model. So ARED, let me define first what ARED is.
Yeah, I was going to
so
say
understand. That. Yeah. So ARED today, we develop what we call smart distribution network using a micro franchise business model. So we recruit, train women and people with disability to operate this smart, what they call smart kiosk that does Wi-Fi, phone charging. We have a mobile app that sells digital services. So we're the first company to have built a one-stop shop platform where you can get all your digital services, including connectivity, from this kiosk. And we use a micro franchise business model to empower community. So that's how we are today. We extended now. We do a lot more stuff. We extended where we do Wi-Fi solution also for retailers, business, malls, and all those things. And finally, we're working on building what we call an edge computing business. So the kiosk, the Wi-Fi solution in businesses, they all at some point are going to be connected to build this huge network where you can build multiple applications on top of it. So that's where the big vision is of ARED. But that's ARED today. But ARED in 2013 was a phone charging business. And we still have the micro franchise business model. But the other thing you have to learn about Africa, the margins in most businesses, remove the luxury brand. Most businesses, the margins are very small compared to the States. So it's very difficult. I don't like the word impossible, but it's very difficult and even rare for any business to be able to build a sustainable business on just one or two services because of the low margins and the high cost of operation. Because of lack of infrastructure. Another thing about Africa, and I hate to generalize because Africa is 54 countries, but yet each country has different challenges. But in most countries here, you have a lack of developed ecosystem. So if you have a business like us, ARED, you need a training company to train your staff or train your agents, for example. There's none. So you have to create that. And then you have to find a company to do maintenance of your ecosystem. Some countries don't have, so you have to build that. So you find yourself building the whole ecosystem, the whole value chain, and it's also very expensive. And it's not, most investors will tell you that's not the way to do business. You need to focus and specialize into one thing. But in Africa, you can't do that. And you find yourself doing a lot of stuff, and you have no other choice. So we learn, man. We learn a lot, and but we're still here. So I got to knock on wood. We've been able to do a few things.
As long as you don't call your mama, we good.
No.
Almost like those.
Well, now she's proud of me. We've been lucky. Now she's seen what I'm doing, and she's seen some of the media attention we've had. So she's like, okay, son, now I get it. But you know.
It's funny because my guests before this, they went through a similar thing where they had to switch from having a successful career to venturing out into starting their business, and their mom was the same force that was there, like, listen, you're sure? But I think too, beyond our parents, beyond the people that really loved us, that's really what entrepreneurship is: taking risks, making risks. And really challenging ourselves, because when you have a vision, the whole world won't see that, right? The whole world won't understand it. And sometimes we ourselves don't understand it. We just know there's something there that we have to, there's the purpose that we have to bring forth. So I love that about your story. Like through it all, you were consistent. You were like, I'm going to figure this out. And even learning the challenges of the change, because it is, and I'm glad you brought up those points, that it is different running a business in a different country, whether it's some parts of Africa or you go to wherever you go, it's going to be different. It's going to be different challenges, but how do you overcome those challenges is key. So let's talk a little bit about the impact that your company has made, because you've been in business for 6 years. You are empowering people, you're employing people, you're giving women jobs. And I think that's one of the things that really stuck with me hearing your story, and seeing the stories of those that you're impacting. So like I said before earlier, you kind of brush over these things, but I think it's important because you are a social company, and you're a green company. So let's talk about some of the direct impacts that your company is making.
Yeah. So the impact, as I said, I was trying to bring technology and also impact communities, the main impact that I realized, and I learned a lot also. It's not just me, but it was organic growth. But the reason, for example, the Women and People with Disability came about, interesting enough, women, when I first started, women were performing much, much better on the kiosks than the men. Mm-hmm. Women were much more responsible on the kiosks than the men. So I made a conscious decision, just focus on them and people with disability. And women in general don't have the same access to opportunities than men. And it's very, very clear in Africa. It's even more it's even more obvious than that. So I wanted to really impact those communities. I mean, we've impacted over 100 women. We serve over 250,000 digital services and 200,000 customers for the last 6 years. We're in 3 countries. Now, as I said, we're branching out, because one of the things I learned is social impact is the hardest thing I ever did in my life. All the business I've done, helping people and building a sustainable business on top of that is extremely difficult. And unfortunately, the reality on the ground of all these NGOs and that claim and to come here and help is just a bunch of BS also. You discover that it's the politics and the reality on the ground is totally different than what you see on TV and all those things. And so I was very naive. Let me put it this way. I was very naive about the reality, because I really thought that if I do something good for the people and I do something good for the community, then I'll get the support I need, whether it's government support, whether it's NGO support, and the reality is not that. There's a lot of politics in all this NGO business in Africa. So I found myself pretty much on my own. I mean, luckily, this business is the first business I had to raise capital. I was lucky enough to raise some capital. But at the same time, it ended up being much, much harder than I expected. But also, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a challenge, but I think when God heard my message, he really gave me something to chew on.
He's like, here you go.
Yeah, it's like, I got something for you, buddy.
and that's sometimes too, like the things that we take on, we don't even see the bigger picture or what it really involves. Because I think if we did, imagine you seeing the full scope of your vision, you might back away. You might say, heck no, pass that on to somebody else to execute. But now you're seeing it revealed. I want to touch on something real quick that you mentioned of not so much the politics of, just social engagement and entrepreneurships and the give backs that we may see here in the States when you see a company saying, we're going to Africa and we're doing this, we're making these changes. And like you said, most of it is BS. I'm actually doing a project right now and I'm seeing that myself. So I'm really intrigued about like interviewing people like you and really getting the raw, the real, and the truth. Because I think it's so important, especially for entrepreneurs listening, if you do have a mission and you want to tie it to your business, it's really important that we are actually doing those things. And it's not just to be put on paper to say, I'm doing this, I'm helping this person when it's really not. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, as it involves, I'm sure you're going through that challenge. Like you said, you're actually doing it. You're employing women, you're feeding families, you're doing all that, and you're in your country, you're able to see the real, after effect of those things and how these women are able to, provide for their family. But I'm sure you also have challenges seeing people or other companies or larger entities that say they're doing these things, but like you said, it comes back to politics. What are your thoughts on that as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, what I learned, and we got a lot of grants, so what I learned is NGOs or any organization that claim doing good anywhere, but let's focus on Africa. It's business. It's a big business, right? They raise a lot of money, 80%. So, and I'm speaking from experience. I mean, we work with a lot of NGOs. So I can tell you a few stories. For example, when we apply, sometimes we apply with some NGO for funds for this project, because we also operate in refugee camps, in 5 refugee camps in 2 countries. So NGO will send a consultant. They pay $250 an hour from whatever the States or wherever, just to come to a community or an area they have no knowledge and they don't care. They never lived there. They just come to assess whatever they come to assess. They go back. And you find out that most of the fund those guys raise, 80% goes back to individuals' pocket. And they barely hire locals that has expertise that can give you a much better view and expertise. I've had instances where NGOs would not tell their funders about area directly because they're scared that the funder will cut them off and fund us directly, right? Because I've worked with NGO where 70% of their staff is just grant writing. I've seen it all, and you see, and you come to the conclusion that it's a machine that obviously existed way before me, and then they're resisting the change. Because what social impact is, it's actually a replacement to traditional NGO. That's really what it is. And social impact, it's about local communities solving their local problems, or locals solving their own problem by developing their own solution. And that's a huge threat to NGOs. Because for them, and most program NGO has a 2-year span. So all they do is 2 year, they raise grant money, they get 2-year program, and then that program ends, the money ends, boom, they leave that program. Social impact is totally different. You solve a problem, your job is to make it sustainable, and you build a business around it for as long as you can. Even when you sell it, no, there's sustainability, it sustains itself. And NGO is not sustainable. So you have this conflict between two systems. One is a new one, and the other one is the old one. And you see some NGO starting to understand that and changing. And you see, especially the big ones, they're resisting the change, and they're keeping the status quo. And it's a tough, because and I truly believe that today, most of the social problem the world is facing could be solved. All we have to do is wanting to solve them. But unfortunately, humans, we're selfish by nature. We looking at our own interests. So how much money can I squeeze from this program in my own pocket? And when you start having this mindset in those organizations and all, then it trickles down and it fails. By the time it gets to the last mile person, is done. It's over. So it's a battle. It's a constant battle, but it's a battle that will continue way after we are gone. But I see the growth now of that ecosystem of social impact. So it's a movement that now is growing really tremendously. So I'm very optimistic in the future, for sure.
I love it. And what is your next 5-year plan for ARID, or what's to come for ARID? What should we expect from ARID? Because like you say, you're always evolving and you're always figuring out like how to sustain the business, because I think that's something we also don't talk about in entrepreneurship. As you grow and scale, you need to sustain that business. So what are your goals? What should we expect from you in the next couple of years?
Sure. So to answer that, it will sound like I'm pitching for investment, but that's the best way I can explain. So
The platform. You never know who's listening.
so there's four key components to our solution, right? There's a solar kiosk, there's a mobile app, and there's a Wi-Fi solution that does offline, online technology. And what it means is we develop this router system that has a internal memory where we can localize content distribution. And the reason why we do that is to minimize the cost of data, which is very expensive for people, and able to distribute digital content of all kinds from our own network. The future of area now is we're moving into what we call edge computing. So we want to take this hardware to the next level, where we'll be able to have our router network communicating with each other. And we want to be able to build multiple applications on top of the network. So we literally now moving into a space where we'll be building our own, you can call it a telecom network, but using router technology, where now people will be able to make calls to our own network. You'll be able to message to our own network. It'll be much, much cheaper than you use traditional networks. So that's where we're really moving. Because we have to build now we're trying to combine the commercialization of our technology with the social impact to make it even more sustainable. And so in the next 5 years, this is what we're developing now. So we adding 2 countries every year now. So we should be in between 8 to 10 countries for the next 5 years. And I'm hoping to exit at some point because I feel like entrepreneurship is a young man's game, man. I have nothing else to prove. I've done everything I wanted to do. And now it's time for me to a little bit enjoy life and enjoy my kids, you know, so I'm hoping to exit at some point.
See, guys, he has an exit strategy. That's also something we don't talk about, having an exit strategy. It's okay to have one. Most people start businesses to have one. So I'm glad you touched on that a little bit too. Well, it was awesome. And I learned a lot. And now before we leave, we're going to have like a fun round because we want to know some fun things about you, right? We don't want to be all, so we're going to leave with some fun questions. So are you ready for the fun round? Drum roll.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Who's your favorite entrepreneur?
My mom, funny enough, my mom was an entrepreneur. She's the stallion of the family. She had a very successful side business on top of her job. And that's how she took us to college and all. And my mom was an entrepreneur in a time where women did not have any, no respect. Women couldn't own land, and she owned land, and she found a way to do it. My mom is every time I'm down and I think about my mom's struggle, man, I ain't got no excuse, man. I get back up and start hustling.
That's awesome. What was your latest business win?
My latest business win, interesting. That's a good question. I don't even count the wins. I'm trying to think.
Small, it could be large.
It's small. Well, our biggest win, I think, was signing. We just started in Ivory Coast with a partner, so I think that's a decent win. But we haven't started. You know, every time you have a new partnership, you have to see how it goes. It's like marriage. You know, you have to see how it goes. And all, but that's the latest win I had, setting up in Ivory Coast.
Got it. What was the last book you read?
That I read, actually, mine. I just wrote one, but before that, I'm not a big reader. What was the last? I forgot the title. I'll be lying to you if I remember the title. It was about from an Indian author, and it's about actually building wealth at the bottom of the pyramid. At the BOP. I forgot the title. It's Fortune something. But I read that about 4 years ago. But I'm not a big reader.
That is funny.
I'm not a big reader. I'm a very low attention span. So I get lost after a few. So I watch a lot of videos, and I'm very visual. So I like to learn through visual and all that.
You're probably taking content differently.
Yes.
Visual too. What was the last movie you watched?
Man, I'm a sci-fi buff, man. Was Spider-Man just 2 days ago. Woo!
You should definitely take a listen to our episode that just dropped today, because it's a sci-fi author, a black author. So he was really good. So definitely check that out.
I'll check it out.
What's the best advice that you have for our listeners on how to be successful or how to follow their dreams and pursue their dreams?
Well, I mean, my advice is always the same. First of all, stop procrastinating. Get started, man. A lot of time we spend time in bars with friends. I got a lot of friends like that, where you spend time talking about your ideas every day for a period of time and nothing happened. And then you get depressed because nothing is popping, but you haven't taken action. But the one that I like the most, and I've always worked for me, never give up. Whatever you're doing, never give up. Unless you have no longer any passion about what you're doing. But as long as you're passionate about what you do, do not give up, because you never know what tomorrow is going to hold for you. There's so many instances where I wanted to give up, and I keep fighting, and something pops up a week, a month, or 2 months later. Like if I stopped that moment, I would have never had that opportunity 2 months later. So never giving up, man. And if you need a break, take a break, but don't give up, man. When you give up on your dream, you give up on yourself. And if you give up on yourself, it's going to mess up your self-esteem big time. And that's my advice to people.
If you give up on your dreams, you give up on yourself. And that is it, guys. If our followers, if our listeners want to follow up with you, learn more about you, contact you, what is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I'm all social media. Well, all the main ones: LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Also on the Henri with an I, Nyakarundi. If you type that, you'll see. I even have my website, henrinyakarundi.com. I do a lot of speaking engagement. So check it out. I have my contact there. And please, if you have any questions, more than welcome, man. I love sharing ideas. I love to talk to like-minded people. I think that's the only way you can grow as a person.
Indeed. And guys, we'll link all that in the in our show notes section, so you guys can go visit the website, ask questions, follow him on Twitter. He's very active on Twitter, LinkedIn. I always stress to you guys to connect with people on LinkedIn. So definitely, this was very eye-opening, inspiring, and your story is definitely going to resonate with a lot of people. And we have no excuse. I think that was my top lesson from this entire interview. Is like, we have no excuse, and we can all do it if we really put our mind to it. So thank you for sharing your story with us today. And we hope to have you back sometime in the future to see where Arid is.
Yeah, absolutely. When we exit, I'll contact you, man, so I can talk about that.
Yes. Well, guys, until
Thank
next
you so
time,
much.
You're welcome. Until next time, guys, dream big, execute hard.
Are you looking to diversify your sales channels? Well, look no further. Dreams Inspire Reality Consulting can help you from step to step to launch and grow your brand on Amazon, Walmart, and eBay, the top e-commerce platforms in the world. Your ideal customers are searching for you everywhere but your website. Stop making it hard for them. Let us help you diversify your sales channels. Visit us at www.dreamsinspirereality.com to schedule a consultation.
Dreams inspire